Welcome to another episode of Red and Black, where your conservatism is not just the color that you're used to. I'm Lenny McAllister, and if you're not hearing this broadcast correctly and you've gone swimming recently in New Zealand, it might be because there's a cockroach living in your ear. Now, it's not the kind of news story you want to start off 2022 with, but it's a real news story. And so I'm going to go to the traveling man because he's in love, Mr. Jeff Charles. Jeff, when you were with your honey, did you go swimming? And if you went swimming, did you fear that you might get an insect in your ear, much less a cockroach like this dude in New Zealand did?
No. And there was no swimming because it was too cold for that. It was too cold in Jacksonville. It was too cold in Austin. So, yeah, none of that. And even if I had, there would be no cockroach in my ear. Like, who does that?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to say yes. I'm just trying to get this weird, goofy story in there.
I mean, even if it actually happened, I still wouldn't admit to it. So yeah, I wouldn't say yes either way.
Well, Jeff, it's good television if you admit to it. Why wouldn't you admit to it?
I'd rather admit to you having that happen to you.
Well, I can understand that. Well, and that kind of goes to this, Melanie, right? So Melanie Collette down in the corner. Melanie, why would anybody want to admit this? I know people like your 15 minutes of fame, but that's not the type of 15 minutes of fame that they actually want. Yes, I'm famous. I had a cockroach in my ear. I'm that dude.
Nope, never. I would never, ever. I can't envision any circumstance where I'd ever admit to a cockroach in my ear. Like, no kind of circumstance where that's cool, where that's acceptable. I don't, even if I was like an exterminator, like that's still not good, not a good look. No.
Orkin ear. My bad. I'll be out from work today. Boss, I got orkin ear. What the heck? What? Now, look, you, before I get to Dr. Metzler, Jeff, you have generally been the person that talks about grifting. Is this grifting to a whole nother level, or is this just plain dumb stupid to admit to this to national media that you had a cockroach in your ear?
I mean, if this guy's trying to grift, this is the weirdest grift I've ever heard of. I mean, how much is he even going to make from this? Probably not a whole lot. I mean, it's not a good grift. I think somebody could have advised him better. Maybe he should have called up Candace Owens. I don't know.
And Dr. Metzler, before we start throwing shade, I mean, it's very early in the year. And by the way, we have to explain our absence. So let me get the Dr. Metzler first. Then we got to explain the absence. Then we're allowed to throw shade. Then we get into the topic. Dr. Metzler, what kind of pool or pond or body of water must one swim in to then subsequently get a roach in one's ear? Because that's the other part of this story from New Zealand or wherever it is down under, is the fact that where were you swimming where this could actually get in there in the first place? Where were you? That's just nasty. I know it's summertime down there, but still.
Well, I mean, that's just you summed it up perfectly. That's just nasty. Just nasty. Plain and simple, nasty, disgusting. Grift? No, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I think if he tries to grift on this, he's probably going to have to pay people. Because this is ridiculous. Let's move on.
It's like grifting, but in reverse.
Yes, exactly.
It's a reverse grift.
It's like, have you all ever seen the TNT show where the people go and they get kicked in the groin and they do all kind of crazy stuff to try to win prizes?
Is that Jackass?
No. This is like that to another level, where literally they take like the American Idol model of judges, and then they do these ridiculous things to shock these people, and then if you shock them enough, you win a prize or something. It's like that's what this is.
Respectfully,
you know who doesn't do that?
Black people.
No. Respectfully, I'm gonna say that sounds. You know who doesn't do that? Women.
She's gonna say women, and she's right. This is a story about a dude.
Women don't do that. That sounds like a dude's show. That sounds like a show with men. All men.
You're right. Yeah. It probably
not you.
It's not me. I gotta admit, Jeff, I thought you were pointing to your watch at first. I was like, Time Mix Men?
I accidentally did. But if you look at the program I watched, the point still stands.
That's not what I was pointing to.
I know. I think we know what you were pointing at, Melanie.
I know that, Melanie.
You're well aware.
I'm trying to soften this. And for all you kids out there, Timex used to be a company that used to make watches before there were swatches, which was before Apple Watches. It's got to catch up to kids because nobody knows what a Timex is. Or, you know, the things that took a licking and kept on ticking. Melanie don't know. I know Jeff don't know. Jeff's
all I know is that my queen got me a very nice watch for Christmas. Very nice.
I got a gift for Christmas because I'm in love. Can we talk about things that people used to love, like ripping up the Capitol on January 6th? Let's pivot that way, huh? And how much the media loves talking about January 6th, especially now that we've gotten to the 1 year anniversary. And Dr. Metzler, I'm going to go to you first because you have a perspective on this from a political, lens, but also from a legal lens. We're, believe it or not, 1 year past January 11th, which, by the way, let's just be honest. 2021 seems like it was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, not 1 year ago. Dr. Metzler, as we've gotten past that, what has changed? Let's go into politics first because everybody can talk about the politics a little bit, but I want to go to you first. Tell me what's changed from the legal perspective in regards to how we view everything from policy to the courts after January 6th, because something was definitely broken, but it's not just the things that everybody wants to focus on that's been broken.
Well, no, it's not. And so you have a couple of issues here. You have the Attorney General. So Merrick Garland, today decided that it was time to bring what is essentially an insurrection charge against the Oath Keepers. Now, they've been building that case. It's going to be difficult to prove, but they have been building the case allegedly. Because he's gotten a lot of criticism about the fact that he's basically been prosecuting the low-level offenders. We'll see where that goes. Relative to the law, there's been really no significant change. Again and again and again, they keep saying, we're going to ask such and such to testify. If they don't, then we're going to seek a criminal indictment, blah, 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 blah. We know nothing more now than we knew then. It's an interesting view from the standpoint of what are we doing again? And so as it relates to Merrick Garland, it is extremely clear he was a failed Supreme Court nominee. He will be a failed Attorney General. This is simply just ridiculous. It is theater of the absurd. Again, I don't know what the end game is, nor do I think they know what the end game is. But come on, people. What are we doing? A year? We've been doing this. There have not been any significant public hearings. There's just been whining and complaining. Well, listen, I'm not saying that what happened at the Capitol is acceptable. I am saying, however, that post that time, what have we learned? We have learned zero. And that's the point.
Melanie, let me go to you on this because looking back on it 1 year ago / 6-7 years ago, and before I go into that, I just want to say I'm glad that you're feeling better from COVID. One of the reasons why we haven't had a couple of shows over the last couple of weeks is because you were one of the folks that went through a COVID case. You're doing better. We're glad that you're doing better, and welcome back to Red and Black. And by the way, I also want to say kudos to you for being officially named the 4th host of Red and Black as of whenever Dr. Metzler signed the contract for you and got your 15%. You need to talk to him about your commission. Anyway, with that said, let me get back to January 6th. Maybe that's part of the problem, right? One, people don't know really what to do with that because they didn't expect that to happen. And number two, we don't have the same type of politicians we used to have. I mean, even if something unexpected happened, there was a certain type of politician 40, 50 years ago that would just be like, oh, well, since there's no rule written on this, off with your head. Or you all go to jail. For how long? Until I say so. But they were at least willing to do something decisively. But because they didn't expect that to happen this time last year, and we have a squishy type of politician that knows what to do on media, in media circles, but not necessarily in politics and policy, you get this indecisiveness that leads us to where we are right now.
It does, and like I feel like we're just surrounded by, like you said, squishy politicians, like on both sides of the aisle. Like, how is it? I don't understand. How is it? Okay, well, I understand how the Democrats suck. I get that. That was a given. Why does my team suck? That's what I'm trying to understand. Like, why? Why is my team over here sucking? My team supposed to be the team that knows what they're doing. That's why I signed up for that team, because we're supposed to be the ones that know what we're doing. And my team's over here sucking too. I don't understand why. Like, get your ish together, Republicans.
Jeff, you're laughing. It sounds like you have you may have a reason or an explanation to share with Melanie, because as soon as she said that, why is my team not doing so well, I'll paraphrase, you started laughing. Do you have something to offer, sir?
Yeah, we always suck. I mean, here's the thing. There's a reason why they say that the Democrats are the party of the dangerous and the Republicans are the party of the stupid. I'd rather be part of the party of the stupid, but that doesn't. But when you're part of the party of the stupid, you got to expect a lot of stupid. So, I mean, especially in 2021, 2022, there's just a lot of stupid going all around. And when it comes to January 6th, I mean, I saw that headline with that oath keeper who's being charged with sedition. I don't know where that's going to go. The way I feel about it, the people who engage in violence, they should go to jail. The people who weren't engaged in violence, they should get whatever punishment that is. I don't think they should get the same punishment. What happened was wrong, and we can all acknowledge that. However, these morons who are saying that this is as bad as 9/11 in Pearl Harbor, y'all got to go, because you know you're lying. Imagine downplaying 9/11. Imagine downplaying Pearl Harbor, which started our involvement in World War II, just to score some cheap political points. That's why we don't learn from this stuff, because we have people on the left who just want to exaggerate what's going on, and then people on the right who don't really know. I think some people are countering it pretty well, but then others are just engaging in more stupid. We have a lot of representatives, not so much senators, but a lot of representatives who like to just love getting attention, have no substance. We all know who they are, whether you want to admit it or not, and that just contributes more to the problem. But at the end of the day, like this anniversary, the Democrats celebrating the anniversary, commemorating the anniversary of January 6th, and the show that they put on, the pomp and circumstance. I'm like, is anybody really buying this? I don't think they are. People already want to believe it.
Let me push back for just a second, Jeff, and let me play along with the counter narrative that you're making. What if you made the argument that both the people that opposed us during 9/11, the people that opposed us during Pearl Harbor, the people that opposed us during the Cold War, the people that opposed us in the 19 teens during World War I, the war to end all wars, ironically enough, that didn't work out that way.
Right.
What if you made the case that all those people had the same thing in common that the people on January 6th did, which was an affront to democracy as formed and an intentional act to try to interrupt American democracy as formed by the Constitution? If you made that argument, can you at least go along with that line of logic, even if you weren't flying airplanes into ships in a harbor or buildings in Manhattan?
No, because I think that what these people were doing was a spontaneous wilding out. I think these are a bunch of thugs who just went crazy because the election didn't go their way. I don't believe for a second that they actually thought they were going to stop the election. I mean, yeah, these people were wacky. They were crazy. I don't think that they were that stupid to think that they'd be able to stop an election and take over the federal government using blunt objects and their fists. Like, only they found like 5 guns. Not a single one of them was fired. So this was just a stupid. It's the same type of mob that happened during the George Floyd riots. It was spontaneous. The FBI already found that this was not planned beforehand. So we already know that this was spontaneous. This is not the same thing as flying planes into buildings and killing 3,000 Americans in one sitting. That changed the whole international landscape. And that's what they meant to do. Pearl Harbor, same thing. They were attacking us, and that got us into a war. So January 6th was horrible. I will never downplay how bad it was, but I'm not going to go along with the people who are exaggerating it for political purposes. There's absolutely no way that January 6th will ever impact this nation or the world at large as much as 9/11. And it's okay to admit that. Will it be in the history books? Yes, but these people are not the same as the others. There is a distinct difference, and I think that we have to keep hammering that point home because people on the left are just trying to exploit it, like with this whole House Select Committee. That's a witch hunt. This is political theater, and I understand why they're doing it because they have to, because they have nothing to run on. That's why when Biden got up and started talking about the filibuster, he conjured images of January 6th. January 6th has nothing to do with the filibuster. It has nothing to do with voting rights, but that's going to be the strategy. Every single thing they bring up, they're going to be like, oh, and remember what happened on January 6th, and somehow that has something to do with what we're talking about right now, even though it really doesn't. That's what's going on here. It's a desperate ploy.
Well, and considering, Dr. Metzler, that inflation it's the worst it's been since 1982. The job numbers are still not where they need to be. In fact, we just had a jobs report that came out last week, I do believe, and we're still about 2.5, 3 million jobs underwater from what we lost during the height of COVID in 2020. Now we're going 2 years past this. You know, they have seemingly run the January 6th narrative into the ground where, once again, like everything else, something that initially started off as not being political, everybody was aghast January 6th, 2021. And now you say that date, and depending on what your political affiliation is really, generally speaking, going to be what your feedback to being prompted to say something about that date is going to end up being.
Well, first of all, as it relates to January 6th, look, at the end of the day, you had a bunch of woefully informed or misinformed misfits engaging in what they thought was essentially a protest. Did they really think they were going to overtake the government? Absolutely not. Now, as it relates, listen, I have been in politics since Bush won. Okay, that's how long I've been in politics. I have never seen a Democratic Party that is as incompetent. I've never seen an administration that is impotent as this particular administration is. The president is asleep at the wheel, I think both literally and figuratively. The vice president is an imbecile. Her continued cackling, pantsuit wearing, nonsensical behavior. This is absolutely ridiculous. Where are the competent people that is supposed to bring us together and is supposed to change the trajectory of the country? They do not exist. The CDC director is rogue, and she has run amok on this entire thing. And, you know, people criticize Republicans as they should. However, as it relates to Democrats, this is an unmitigated disaster, which is opening the way for Hillary Clinton to return in 2020.
No.
Yes.
You know, she's at least thinking about it.
Yeah, look, listen to her comments.
I'm not looking at the camera. And do you apologize for saying that? Listen
to her comments. Listen
better watch out.
Thrown the progressives under the bus. Look at how you prepare from time to time to time. Listen, 2024 for the Democrats, in this current situation, Biden is not running again, number one. And number two, no, ain't nobody scared of Kamala to primary. Hi, Hillary. I'm Hillary Clinton.
No. Remember me? I'm going to tell you why. First of all, I still don't even want to look at the camera with you saying stuff like that. You had me come back on the show after Melanie gets over COVID, and you want to hit me with a Hillary Clinton right in the chest at the beginning of 2022. I don't even think that's fair of you. But I'm going to remind you of something that happened in 2021. And Melanie, you watched this from New Jersey because you were one of the two races involved. I'm not talking about the New Jersey race, even though I could, because that gubernatorial race should not have been so close. But the other one in Virginia involved a retread of a retread of a retread that had a connection to a presidential administration from the 1990s. And look at how that played out. My pushback on Dr. Metzler, Melody, I'm going to give you the floor first, is there's no way the Democrats would do that in 2024 after what happened in 2021, after inflation and the jobs numbers and things along those lines, and the ongoing mitigating disaster that is COVID-19, which started in 2019, is going to have an impact on the Democrats in schools and the economy and everything else. There's no way they would take a chance and bring that bad of a retread back from 8 years ago to run for president again. Please tell me that I am seeing this more clearly than perhaps our esteemed Dr. Metzler is.
You don't think they're that dumb? Why do you not think they're that dumb? I don't understand why you don't think they're that dumb. Do you think that they're above screwing Kamala out of that entitled to, because she's entitled to run? You do think they feel some obligation to allow Kamala to run? Do you think that they're smarter than letting Hillary run? After all, she got screwed because it was her turn, and Russia screwed Hillary out of her turn to be president. Like, why would they not let Hillary run? Why would they not do that?
It's possible.
Yeah, I know it's possible.
They already just skipped that rock right across the river this week. To see,
yeah, they might be testing the waters with that. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. I still have I have a feeling though. I mean, and I was talking to one of my colleagues about this. I don't know if it'll be Hillary. It might be, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a certain governor who survived a recall attempt and is still kind of seen as a superstar on the left, named for California Governor Gavin Newsom. I would not be surprised to see that. If I were the Democrats and I had to choose between Kamala and somebody like Gavin Newsom, I'm going to be like, yeah, sorry, Black Hillary, you got to go. Let's see if Gavin Newsom can get something in here.
That makes more sense to me, Dr. Metzler. I can see Newsom, even though it may not be a very good move politically. We're not talking about the best political move in 2024 for the Democrats. We're talking about, I can't see Hillary Clinton coming back. Look, people say that Donald Trump isn't coming back in 2024. I can certainly see Donald Trump coming in 2024 a lot sooner than I can see Hillary Clinton trying to shake off the retread dust from her feet, trying to explain 40 at that point in time, almost 50 years of bad comments and bad positions, and still not being a good candidate, still not being good on the stump, still not being personable, still having all the flaws that she's always had as a candidate, but just being older, slower, and the political game had changed significantly since then. That's just me. No, hold on, Melody. Dr. Metzler, oh, wise and honorable one. Convince me.
You're missing two things. Hillary ain't been no ways tied. Number one. Number two, you are underestimating the power of that hot sauce in her purse. Number two. So,
I'm back to not looking at you on the camera. I'm not. I can't do it.
Listen. I don't think that it is that far-fetched. I do agree that Gavin would probably be a better choice, and they would probably go there. What I'm saying is, do not underestimate that. Bottom line is, Kamala or Joe Biden have zero chance of winning in 2024. Kamala is going to be kicked to the curb, run over by a bus. That's the bottom line. And so, and her interviews, her last, first of all, she gets as a director of communication Jamal Simmons. You and I both know Jamal.
Well, yeah, and there we go, and that, but that illustrates my point. And I want to pivot to something that came out of the Supreme Court recently. After this kind, and I'm not trying to slander Jamal, but I'm saying this again. It's a retread from the Clinton days, so you know all the warts and flaws. And unfortunately, these are people, and even the vice president hasn't done this either. There's an ability to learn on the job, to get better at these things while you continue in the job or as you're going to the next job. And what you're seeing with these names that we're throwing out here, Dr. Metzler, is an inability to get better from time to time to time to time. It's the same stale personalities. What they do fairly well, and what they do horribly, they do horribly poorly, and it's for all to see. And there's no change in the delivery, the style, the tact. There's no self-restraint when the same mistake is about to come up. And it seems as though walking down that path, I mean, they got what they wanted out of Kamala Harris. They got what they wanted out of Joe Biden. I can't possibly see them going, back to the future without a DeLorean and Michael P. Keaton. Or I actually mixed up the characters. It's Michael J. Fox and Alex P. Keaton. You didn't catch that, Melody. That's 5 points that you lost out on. Sorry. You gotta go.
I don't.
That was your job to do that.
Again, I do not. Yeah, I think we have to look at the realm of possibilities. But at the end of the day, Kamala Harris will never be president of the United States of America. Period.
As long as Joe Biden actually makes it through his first term, which I still think he won't. I think he will resign, and then she'll be president for like 5 minutes, maybe.
For 5 minutes.
I don't. Well, and I'm going to say this before we go on to the next thing, which is I don't see Joe Biden resigning, because the Democrats know they would probably lose the White House for 2 terms if he were to resign. It would end up being anybody would end up winning that White House. Again, people haven't talked about DeSantis in a while. People haven't talked about Nikki Haley in a while. Mike Pence is out there sniffing around. So, he's going to likely try to see, what will an exploratory committee look like? Anybody versus a vice president that became president because the president resigned for whatever reason, whether it's health, whether it's just, age, whether it's controversy, whatever the case may be. Joe Biden is not going to resign from the presidency, I don't think, unless if he's completely incapacitated or he dies. I don't see either one of those two happening, to be quite honest with you. So I don't think he's going to resign. But one thing he is going to at least suffer through is some losses from a policy standpoint and with the economy. And Jeff, you brought this to my attention, so I'm going to go to you first on this. It's the latest coming out of the Supreme Court with the Biden mandates when it comes to COVID. This again, this didn't work. And what's interesting to me is the president saw this not work with Democratic governors in 2020 when COVID hit our shores. I don't know why they would think that the power of the presidency was going to change state constitutions or the federal constitution and risk the political capital at a time where COVID's not as much of a threat to people physically as it was in 2020. And I don't care what anybody says. I'm not saying that COVID's not lethal or deadly. I am saying that we have seen studies that say that Omicron is not as lethal. Number one, it is more contagious, but let's just be honest. We understand this disease a lot more 2 years later than we did in the winter and the spring of 2020 when everything was just on lockdown. And even then, the court said, governors, you don't have this right. Why would a president then take that step anyway?
Yeah, especially since later on he said that there is no federal solution for the COVID-19 pandemic. I had a feeling that when he first announced this vaccine mandate, I had a feeling it was going to go down. And I figured I predicted it's going to go to the Supreme Court. I think it's going to get voted down. It could have gone either way, so I could have easily been wrong on that. But I think what's happening now, especially with this Omicron variant, and yes, the fact that the studies are showing and that all the research is showing that it is not nearly as lethal as the Alpha variant or the Delta variant. I think that we are starting to enter into a post-COVID era. I think that's what we're going to see in 2022. I'm not saying we're there right now. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but I think it's going to happen very soon. I think the Democrats know it, and I think they're terrified about it because they've been able to use COVID-19 to do some pretty unsavory things, some pretty statist things. And I think that they don't want to lose that, but I think it's going to happen. And there was a poll that recently just came out in which respondents said that the economy is more important to them than COVID-19. COVID-19 is still up there, but as time goes on, as the virus gets less and less lethal, it's going to go down, 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 down. I think people think that, especially with this whole push to have boosters, I think people feel like they've been had. I think people feel like they've been conned a little bit because these things were not articulated very clearly. I think when Justice Sonia Sotomayor just got up and straight up, either she lied or she was just very much misinformed, which I can believe that too, because I don't think they're all competent. And then you have Walensky, CDC director, coming out and defending her, acting like a partisan hack. People are seeing this stuff. And there's no amount of media spin that could gaslight us into not seeing what's going on. Even people who are pro-vax and take COVID seriously, they know that something's not right here. They know that not everything that they're saying is honest. So I do think that we are entering into a post-COVID era, and I think that that's what we're dealing with right now.
Dr. Metzler, give us a hybrid of the legal analysis of what transpired and the political analysis, because to me, it seemed like a bridge too far and a calculus they didn't need to take that ended up backfiring.
Yeah, well, look, again, I just simply don't understand what kind of lawyers are advising this administration here. The Supreme Court's decision boiled down to this. The administrative, that is, federal agencies where no one's elected to anything simply cannot make rules without explicit direction from Congress. I mean, this is constitutional law 101. I don't understand. And so what the court essentially said was, listen, as it relates to the healthcare workers, relative to some Medicare, Medicaid requirements, we have to allow that so long as there is religious exemptions, period. And that's correct. But administrative agencies, remember, these people, Walensky, all of these people, they're not elected to anything by anyone. Congress never specifically gave OSHA the ability to do this broad, sweeping, uncontrolled law. It's very simple. It's no more complicated than that. And so in this particular case, what ended up happening was you had the bureaucrats taking over and the Supreme Court checking them. As it relates to the liberals on the court, Sotomayor, first of all, I don't even understand why you're repeating such ridiculous statistics. You don't know what you're talking about. Most people go to law school because they're bad at math. And that is exactly what we saw.
Melanie, your thoughts?
Let me tell you something. After spending the last 11 days dealing with COVID, after really feeling like I didn't have a choice but to get vaccinated because of my job and because of my own medical history with pneumonia and asthma, and working in an environment where I knew I was going to be exposed pretty often, I'm really pissed. And you
Wait a minute.
know,
First of all, hold on. Before you continue, people that are usually pissed don't usually laugh. And if they're laughing, it's before they grab a knife and do something really, really dangerous with it. So just kind of clarify what you meant by when you say you're.
Well, how do we know that she's not going to kill somebody after this?
We
Oh,
don't.
that's what kind of laugh. That's what kind of laugh that was. I spent my last day in quarantine watching those hearings, knowing that I was watching complete bull, and knowing that those people had no idea what they were talking about. They were getting paid all that money and had no idea what they were talking about. Because I have asthma, I've been wearing a KN95 mask at work all day. I cannot breathe. I got vaccinated. I still got COVID after all of that. And now I'm back at work, even after I had COVID, have natural immunity.
Did you say you were black at work?
Pardon me?
Did you say you were black at work or back at work?
Back at work. I'm also black at work.
Yes.
I'm the only full-time African-American teacher at my job, but I digress. Which is why
you got black teachers who take time off of being black?
The white liberal teachers at my job just hate my existence.
I bet.
Because they're like, but you're black. But you're
okay, Karen.
Yeah. They're really just so confused. But I'm really like so mad, and I'm not surprised what happened at the Supreme Court. OSHA was an attempt to work around a constitution. It was absolutely never going to work. It's not a hazard. It was never it's a work hazard for me because I work around 90 to 100 high school kids. So of course I was going to be exposed, but you can't force me to inject something in my body unless your name is Phil Murphy. You can attempt to force teachers to inject a vaccine into their body, but it's the whole thing is just absolutely insane, and I'm completely furious and over it. And if I publicly made obscene gestures, I would right now, because that booster's done. They will not be giving me another vaccine. They will not be doing that again.
And you know what? If I could just interject there really quick, I got vaxxed too for a lot of the same reasons that you did, Melody. I mean, I had underlying health issues, so I did my research. You know, right. I did look at the data, talked to my doctor, and I'm not advising anybody to do anything, but I'm just saying for me, I got the vax, and I knew a little bit after that because I didn't take it right when it came out, but I knew that it wasn't 100%. But at the same time, I knew, okay, it'll at least offer some protection. But then, you know, now that this booster is coming around, I'm leaning against taking it. And again, I'm not telling people watching this what to do. I'm just saying for myself, there's just too much deception going on here. I feel like there's a con job. If you have to use the power of the government to force people to do something, if you have to use deception and lie about it and not be honest about the vaccine and the booster, then honestly, I can't trust you. The fact that, I mean, and I listened to that Joe Rogan interview with David McCullough, and the fact that they discouraged early treatment using other methods, even before the vaccine. The fact that they're discouraging monoclonal antibodies, and I'll say it, hydroxychloroquine. I'm not saying that that's a miracle cure, but there were indications that it might help some people. The fact that they dismissed every single thing except this vaccine tells me there's a con job here, because I think in my condition, in my case, I probably don't need the booster. If I do get it, I'm probably going to survive it anyway. And there are other treatments that are available to me as long as the Biden administration doesn't cut it off from the state of Texas, which that's kind of been happening. So there's just too much shady stuff going around here for me to just blindly accept the narrative. It doesn't mean that I automatically believe the anti-vax crowd, but at the same time, the government and the left and the Democrats have really fouled this up because they lied, because they didn't communicate effectively, and because they want to use the government to force you to do things. I'm glad that the Supreme Court struck that down, because that is exactly what they deserve. And now they have to go back to square one to figure out how they're going to force people to take this thing. And honestly, I think that at this point, they failed. And on top of that, a lot of businesses are already doing it anyway. So there was no need for Biden to do what he did. He's just that geriatric authoritarian in the White House that wants to do what he wants to do. So yeah, I'm glad that the Supreme Court said shove it.
Dr. Metzler, we're at a point in time in history where and maybe we can't see it now, but we're going to look back on this probably 5, 10, definitely 20 years and moving forward into the future when they reflect back on this time. And the intersection of civic responsibility, civil rights, constitutional rights, the role of government during a pandemic, or in an election year with a country going in opposite directions ideologically, is going to be fascinating to look at. As we're hitting, this is year 3. Again, COVID-19 has 19 at the end of it because it was discovered at the end of 2019. We're now in 2022. What hasn't government learned about how to go through a pandemic like this in the 21st century? Because it seems as though, to me and to many probably, that we tried to use early 20th century intervention methods and even societal methods to prompt people to get on the same page in a 21st century world. It just hasn't worked. In fact, in many instances, it's gotten things worse, not better, in regards to getting everybody on the same page.
Well, government hasn't learned anything, really, largely because we no longer have government. What we have are political hacks who are appointed for political patronage. And as a result of that, they're willing to do whatever the so-called leader wants them to do. The public be damned. These supposed folks who are healthcare professionals or public health officials, the fact that the head of the CDC decides that she needs to engage in a defense of a member of the Supreme Court of the United States, she should be terminated immediately.
That was disgusting. Yes.
It's disgusting. It is completely inappropriate. That is not her job. The Supreme Court just said what she said. She was wrong as to do. She was loud and wrong. See, director, why in the heck are you getting involved in that discussion? So what we don't have are dedicated, and again, it doesn't go for every public servant, but we no longer have, particularly at the highest levels, we do not have folks who are concerned about the public and about the public well-being. They're concerned about their own political futures. They are concerned about what will they do when their person is out of office. That's their concern. It is a sad state in which we find ourselves as Americans.
So let's actually talk about that for just a second, Melanie. I'm going to go to you now on this, because leveraging what Dr. Metzler said and now looking at how people in office, the same people that in 2020 were like, shut it down, shut everything down, the schools, the economy, businesses, whatever else. We just have to keep safe. First started with flattening the curve. We haven't heard that phrase in 18 months, but I won't even digress into that. I'm going to go from 2020 to where we are now. And now you're seeing some of the very same people that were shut it all down, flatten the curve for 2 weeks, we'll be fine, and then flatten the curve went away, are now, we can't really close the economy. One of the things that happened over Christmas break over the last couple of weeks was the whole, well, maybe you don't need to be isolated for 10 days, maybe just 5 days, because economically we can't afford for you to stay home for 10 days. And now all of a sudden the same arguments that we heard in 2020 that were seen as being blaspheming against, the spirit and the sanctity of human life are now like, well, we have to make compromises because, this kind of goes back to what Dr. Metz is saying is, and it's even something that we said earlier in the show, when you get these squishy politicians that are only looking at poll numbers and not looking at leadership models, you get this back and forth that people can't trust. And Jeff, it may not be lying, but it ends up still not being the truth, which are different. Okay, I didn't lie to you. Yeah, you told me 7 different things. They all have about 5% truth to them, and I can't follow any of it, so I trust nobody, Melanie, right?
Well, yeah. And in addition to that, in California, they're actually sending COVID positive medical staff to work. Like what? What in the actual bleep? Like, are they serious? Like they're seriously sending COVID positive medical staff to work. So that's our government seriously cannot be trusted. Like that's clear. And for the CDC to say, I didn't even have what I would consider to be a bad case of COVID. I've had worse sinus infections. I've had pneumonia where I was hospitalized and on oxygen. Like I've definitely been sicker. And on day 5 of this COVID, which I would definitely say was a mild case, there was no way I was ready to go back to work. So for them to be like, oh yeah, you can go back on day 5. No, there's no way I could have gone back to work on day 5. So I don't know what they're doing, but they can't be trusted. And the thing I was going to bring up earlier is, what about the fact, why isn't Dr. Fauci, the highest paid bureaucrat in the government, conflicted out? Because it's crystal clear from what we know about him that he is complicit in this virus getting out, because he was involved in the financing of this gain of function experimentation. He's complicit. So how can he, on the one hand, have been involved in this virus getting out and also be responsible for protecting us from the same virus?
Never trust a man who kills beagles.
Pardon me?
Never trust a man who kills beagles.
He killed Snoopy?
That's Snoopy. Yeah, he killed beagles.
Just hate him. I don't understand. I don't understand how he's not conflicted out from that job when he was involved. He was absolutely involved, and we still, as American people, don't completely understand to what extent. But it's pretty clear that he was involved.
And let me say this, because we're going to wrap up the show shortly. And I don't know if it's just COVID, but I mean, one can make the argument COVID, the 2016 election, the 2020 election, the war in Afghanistan, going to Iraq when we probably shouldn't have gone to Iraq. It seems as though America has been wandering in the wilderness for about 20 years. That you don't have a lot of leadership, Dr. Metzler, that's concise, that's focused, that doesn't get distracted, that doesn't get compromised. I mean, heck, compared to what we've been seeing lately, Barack Obama looks like a pretty darn strong leader. And he's the dude that said, Syria, I'm drawing this red line. Don't you cross it with the barrel bombing, as a Nobel Peace Prize winner 10 years ago. And, Bashar al-Assad was like, whatever, dude. I got my buddy over here, Putin. I'll do what he says. And that's the model of leadership compared to some of what we're seeing now, and the lack of confidence that people are having in this current administration, the numbers we're seeing economically, the numbers we're seeing with inflation, and the continued, iterations of COVID. When we start looking at that, what is it going to take for America to come out of the wilderness? And please don't go to just in a Republican presidential administration, because for all the good economic stuff that we saw under Trump, we saw horrible communication, horrible discipline that kept stuff muddied when stuff could have been on a stream track. And one could argue that if it were more on a stream track, we're in term 2 of a Trump administration. We don't even think about a Biden administration.
Yeah, well, the issue here, I don't think is so much Republican or Democrat, because on both sides we are electing sycophants, we are electing crazy people, we are electing folks who are more concerned about shock and grifting, and that's the problem. Until as Americans say, listen, here is the criteria. You have to be concerned about us. You have to make sure our lives are better. If we look at a lot of the Republican messaging that's coming up, Kevin McCarthy, Kevin, dude, I know you're trying to be speaker. I'm not convinced that if Republicans took control, that you would be speaker. That's number one. If your message is, if I'm elected, I am going to impeach Biden, I'm going to put Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm going to put all these people back on their committees. Is that putting them back on those committees has nothing to do with me being able to pay my bills, with inflation, with quality of life, with education. But we have fallen into this trap where we want to follow the shock and awe people. Folks, that's not going to get. Let's talk about leadership. What does that look like? How do people behave? This is not about saying, okay, well, the Dems have had their chance. Let's put Republicans back in office. That's not the point. We need to put in office people who are concerned about us as Americans and forget all of that other stuff that's going on, all these distractions. That is why we are getting to the point where we're doomed.
Let me say this before I wrap up the show. I'm going to say this. I'm going to pivot to something funny that's a little lighter hearted and get out of here. People forget this point. And Jeff, I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Melanie, I'm going to give you 5 seconds. When COVID-19 in 2019 was escaping Wuhan and China was going through all kind of lockdowns, what was America preoccupied with in 2019 politically? Does everybody remember? No, we don't, because Americans have short attention spans. The first impeachment trial of Donald J. Trump. Everybody was so captivated with trying to impeach Trump and saying, hey, even if he doesn't get impeached, it's going to weaken him for 2020, and then we'll win the White House. So the Democrats were trying to get him impeached. The Republicans were trying to keep him from being impeached, and everybody focused on that rather than this invisible killer that took out 750,000 Americans alone, when everybody should have been getting together and leading rather than been focusing on the things that Dr. Metzler said. Am I wrong, Jeff? Am I wrong, Melanie?
No, you're not. I mean, we have a huge political theater problem. We get really distracted by what Sonny Johnson calls these bouncing balls that get our attention and stuff like that. And I will say, if Kevin McCarthy is House my majority leader, I do want him to put them back on their committee assignments, and I do want him to take Adam Schiff off, Eric Swalwell, and Ilhan Omar. But Dr. Metzler is right. That can't be all he does. We need more. We need substance. And I have my reasons why I want him to do that. That's a totally separate thing. But I agree. We need people in office who have substance, and a Democrat and Republican. We need people who actually want to make a difference. And that's why I've been saying the primary season for these midterm elections are more important than the midterm elections. Because if we retake the House and let's say even the Senate, and we've got the wrong people in there, none of this will mean a damn thing.
Melanie, real quick, what say you?
No, I completely agree with everything that Jeff said, and I'm underwhelmed thus far with the way Kevin McCarthy is handling the responsibilities that he does have. Like, he's just being, to me, a bit on the weak side. Like, he's being, I was going to use a not very ladylike
Thank
phrase.
you for not.
Never mind.
You were pointing at it earlier.
Yes, I was gonna say he's being limp.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
The only thing I would ask, I just have one question.
Very quickly.
Where's Vernon Jones?
You took one joke away and added another punchline. I digress. Really quickly, there's a story out of China where we're talking about COVID stuff. Apparently, they had re-lockdowns going on in some towns in China recently, and there was a woman that allegedly was on a blind date, just met a dude. He wanted to cook for her, and then got stuck in lockdown because the city got locked down for a week or so because of COVID. Does anybody have any type of similar lockdown stories where that happened to them, where they just happened to get stuck with a blind date for a week unexpectedly? Anybody want to confess to anything like that? Not me. I never. No.
Maybe not in that way, but I mean, I did have someone lock me down recently, so you know.
Hey.
Hey, you opened the door, right? I just walked through it.
It reminded me of a winter break where it stormed during undergrad. There was some grain, alcohol, grape juice, and a boyfriend involved. Something. Oops.
Was he a Democrat?
Oh, suck it, man.
Oh gosh. Jeff Charles, what are you going to be working on this week? What do you got going on?
I don't know. No, fresh perspective, my podcast. I'm putting more energy into my audio podcast. The next episode is going to drop next week. I've been doing a lot of Twitter spaces recently. I've got some lined up. Those will also be part of my audio only podcast. I recently just did an interview with Jimmy Lee Tillman on my video or on my YouTube channel. I'll be uploading that probably on Monday. So yeah, I got a lot of stuff coming up.
That sounds cool. Are you going to be putting letters into the Twitter spaces as well? Or is it just all spaces? People don't know what the trying to say.
Oh my God, really?
Anywho, Melanie, what you got going on this week?
Newsmax, this coming Monday at 3:30 on American Agenda. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast on Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m.
Fantastic. Dr. Metzer, what you got going on this week? Where are you moving and shaking?
I will be back in New York, trying to keep things going. Oh, and by the way, I heard that Joe Pinion is challenging Chuck Schumer. That's what I heard.
Ooh.
That is very interesting. Listen, folks, we're back here. We appreciate you back, and then we're going to be expanding the platform probably within a couple of weeks, where we're going to be doing it here where you're used to finding us on Red and Black, but we're going to also take it to another platform as well. So we're going to give you twice as much fun as we continue to expand the show. Please share the likes. Please share the platform. Please share the link. Have folks subscribe. Make sure that you're in the chat room. Thank you for joining us, as you always have. Thank you for joining us this Saturday or Sunday. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your MLK.
Be sure to subscribe.
Absolutely. Make sure you subscribe. And meanwhile, have a wonderful weekend. TCNGB. Take care and God bless. Peace.